ago, a strange sight met his eyes. A slender female figure descended the hill, jogging with almost desperate determination and zigzagging slightly from fatigue. With much huffing and puffing, bedraggled, one-time pristinely piled hair, and wearing a seriously oil-soaked sneaker, Lisette Lafitte arrived at the garage. When she was finally able to speak, Lisette announced to Nigel and Connor that it was in fact her employer, Mr. Lafitte, who had sent them the cryptic message about meeting on Mount Mungo. But now plans had changed significantly. The latest plan was that Mr. Lafitte had invited them to travel to his office in his own personal limousine, which would arrive shortly. Well relieved though he was at not being late for their earlier appointment, Nigel was a little concerned about leaving their bus there, taking up valuable space at the garage. But according to Lisette, Mr. Lafitte had insisted, and just to ease Nigel's conscience, she suggested that they have it serviced while it was there. Leaning in close so there would be no misunderstanding, Lisette suggested that Barry made sure that it was a top quality job and that she didn't want them coming back with any complaints about the service or any new little faults that had suddenly shown up, or her uncle would be very unhappy. Did Barry understand? And now quaking Barry definitely did understand. When the limousine arrived, Lisette took Nigel and Connor to her uncle's office, where her immediate boss, one of Lafitte's managers, told them that his employer had absolutely fallen in love with their plot of land and little house, and was willing to make them a most generous offer. He realized, of course, that money was not of much value to these gentlemen, so he was willing to swap them, in exchange for a more valuable plot, with a somewhat larger house on it. But before Nigel could open his mouth and spoil everything, and even before taking a look at what was being offered, Connor O'Connor immediately declared, "Well then, if our property means so much to dear Mr. Lafitte, and I can quite understand that it would be in such a charming little jewel of a house. Well then, on behalf of the Digibeet Corporation, my esteemed co-director here and myself, with tears in my eyes, I reluctantly accept the swap." Some days later, Nigel and Connor moved into their new home, which seemed to have been quite suddenly vacated. It was a neat little house, not fancy, but at least it wasn't a tumble-down shack. In fact, it was a veritable palace compared to their old chattel house. As Nigel and Connor were unpacking their belongings, they became concerned as a tremor went through the building, followed by another stronger vibration which caused things to rattle and shake. Then as one, both men dropped to their knees with their hands over their heads as an enormous crash that sounded like a steam locomotive having a sudden and heated altercation with a henhouse engulfed their new home, sending cups, plates and half-filled bottles crashing to the floor. Rushing outside, they came to a sudden halt at a most unexpected spectacle. There stood the Digibeet team, smiling broadly and proudly surrounding some kind of pneumatic digging device, which gently wheezed and murmured to itself, standing at the edge of a large hole which it had obviously just created. to celebrate their boss's new abode, here was a special gift called Digibeet, a zero carbon footprint pneumatic digging machine powered by hand. And because they felt that the newly acquired garden could use a little attention, they were going to demonstrate Digibeet at this new location. Well, at Nigel's rather emphatic suggestion, and with a little disappointment, they dragged Digibeet to a remote corner of the grounds, where it thumped and wheezed and hissed its way along. After a few enthusiastic and effective digs, Digibeet started to slow, then ground to an ungainly halt. The blade had become heavily gummed up with thick, black, sticky liquid. Their first concern that Digger had done itself an injury and broken an oil seal was soon put to rest, as they discovered that the sticky black liquid was actually coming up from the ground. And they all agreed that, strangely, it looked remarkably like raw, crude oil. That was Banania. Please subscribe via Apple Podcasts or your favourite podcast provider. And for more information, visit bananiapodcast.com.